What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. I know it's been a very long time since I have uploaded a video, and I sincerely apologize for that, but I'm happy to be recording this video and uploading it, as now that the seeding games are officially over for the NBA, and so as the play-in tournament is officially over, I want to talk about who I think is going to be winning these NBA playoffs in the Orlando bubble, and I'm going to be going through my entire bracket for you guys and breaking down each matchup. So I'm very excited to do this. I hope you guys are really looking forward to the playoffs just as much as I am. I think this is going to be one of the best playoffs we've had in a very long time, and I mean that since probably the best playoffs since 2014, 2013-ish, because I really think that there are a lot of teams that are either contenders or borderline contenders that could potentially knock out a real contender, and I think some of the bottom teams are actually really solid as well. But I want to start off by talking about the East because I think that's more straightforward, and then we're gonna get into the West. So I'm going to be starting off on the right side for you guys, and I apologize for my camera being over the Milwaukee Bucks logo there, but first matchup is going to be the Bucks versus the Magic, and I don't really want to spend too much time talking about this matchup because I think it's pretty obvious of what's going to happen. Now that Mo Bamba's out, Jonathan Isaac's also out, unfortunately. I think the Orlando Magic really just don't have anything to stop these Milwaukee Bucks. I don't see anybody that can guard Chris Middleton or Giannis on this Magic team. Do I think the Magic are going to be putting up a good fight and potentially get a game? Sure. I think they're going to make these games a lot closer than we think, but I don't think that the Magic are actually going to get a game against this Bucks team. I think the Milwaukee Bucks sweep the Orlando Magic and move on to the second round easily. It's unfortunate for Magic fans because Jonathan Isaac is really becoming into Jonathan Isaac, and Mo Bamba was kind of playing okay in the bubble until he had to leave. So it's an unfortunate way for the Magic season to end, but I think the Bucks are going to be moving on very easily, in my opinion, to the second round. Next thing I want to talk about is the Raptors versus the Nets. This matchup intrigues me just because of the fact that we know that Kyle Lowry has some issues in Game 1 of the playoffs, and we've seen it for years now. And just because of that, I think the Brooklyn Nets get Game 1 in this series. I think Caris LeVert is extremely underrated, and I think Jacques Vaughn has done actually a really good job with this Nets team since taking over. Now, what comes into my head is because I think the Raptors are actually going to lose Game 1 here, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I do think there's a good possibility of this happening, that the Raptors do lose Game 1. Is that going to freak out the Raptors for the rest of the series? I don't think it's going to, because now that a good amount of the roster has been to the finals and they won the finals, I think this Raptors team is going to be just fine in this series. Don't be surprised though if the Nets do get a game, and that's just why I think the Raptors, this series is going to be Raptors in 5, and they'll move on to the second round, who they're going to be facing versus either the Celtics or the 76ers. And this series to me is unfortunately it's not as hyped up as I thought it could be. Ben Simmons is, as we know, out, and unless Philly makes the finals, he's probably not returning for the season. And just because of that, I think the Celtics are the clear favorites to win this series. However, I don't think that means that the 76ers are they don't have a chance at all. I actually think the 76ers have a pretty decent shot of winning this series, but the Celtics are the clear favorite. If Joel Embiid can come out and be the best player every single game and have it minimum 35 points a game, minimum 12 rebounds, and is dominating the paint every single game, I think the 76ers have a chance of winning the series, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. And the Celtics have really 3 main guys that can create their own shot at any given point, and they can shoot from anywhere, and they can create their shot in any which way form. They can do it all. And because of that, I think that's going to come up huge in the playoffs, especially in crunch time. I have the Celtics winning against the 76ers in 6 games, moving on to face the Toronto Raptors. Now, this last matchup in the Eastern Conference in the first round, Pacers versus Heat. This is by far, I think, the most intriguing one in terms of we really do not know what's going to happen in this series. Like, there is no guarantees at all, like, across the board. Like, for example, like, with the Bucks, Giannis is going to show up. Chris Middleton's going to show up, right? In this series, I do not know who's going to be the best player on either team, either night. And that's what really makes this series really, really interesting. Jimmy Butler has not played amazing in the bubble. Jimmy Butler has usually played very well in the playoffs, but we've seen this year that he can't shoot very well from three-point range. However, that does not mean that he is not going to be clutch down the stretch. The Pacers have seen TJ Warren go off this in the bubble so far, and he got all first team for the bubble games, deservingly so. But we've also seen games where it's not TJ Warren is the best player for the Pacers. It could be Malcolm Brogdon or Oladipo. So because of that, I don't know who is going to be the best player for either team. And I think this series is going to be a humongous back and forth, or it's going to be a sweep for either team. I personally want this series to go very long because I think that would be a really, really fun matchup to watch first round in the East. And because of Jimmy Butler and his ability to come up clutch down the stretch, especially as the series goes on, I think the Miami Heat is going to win this series, but in 7 games. I think this is going to be an extremely long series, and I'll be disappointed if it isn't. But I can guarantee you this, though, you're not going to know what's going to happen coming into the games at all. You're going to be shocked at the end of every single game, because these teams, I mean, no disrespect to them, they're just kind of all over the place. And because of that, it's going to make some incredible games for that series. So that's the East side for the first round. Now I'm going to move over to the West here. So I'm recording this on Sunday, so I know that the Blazers are in, as you can see also on this bracket. Blazers beat the Grizzlies. I kind of expected that, especially since Damian Lillard is just going insane. And because Damian Lillard is playing so well, I do think that he is going to give the Lakers a run for their money just a little bit in the first round. I think this Blazers team is a legit 4 or 5 seed if they just stayed healthy all year. And now the thing is that they're stuck at number 8. That does not mean, though, that I think that they're going to beat the Lakers. I think the Lakers have some issues on the perimeter defensively. I do not see a single person except for maybe Danny Green that can guard Lillard and McCollum. But on the flip side, for the Blazers, I don't see anybody that can guard LeBron. And I think this Blazers team has some serious problems stopping people defensively and closing out a defensive possession. As you guys all saw at the later games for the Blazers, they have some trouble rebounding, even though they have Whiteside, Nurkic, Collins, etc. And I think that's going to kill the Blazers because the Lakers are a very good rebounding team. But Lillard's greatness is going to get the Blazers a couple of games in this series. But I do have the Lakers moving on. I have the Lakers winning this series in 6 games. I just think Anthony Davis and LeBron are going to be too much for this Blazers team. And it's kind of disappointing because I want to see Lillard as much as possible in these playoffs, but I think he's going to be a first-round exit this year. Moving on to the Clippers versus Mavericks. A lot of people have talked about this series as a really, really good matchup, but in my opinion, I think the inexperience with Luka and Porzingis and basically the rest of the Mavs roster is really going to kill them against the Clippers. I have a couple of issues with what is going to happen, and I know it's going to happen in this series. One problem I see already for the Mavericks is that Luka has just not played that well against the Clippers. And the Clippers have multiple people that they can use to guard Luka Doncic. Whether it's Patrick Beverley, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Rodney McGruder, etc. It can keep going. The other thing for the Clippers that helps them specifically against the Mavericks is that Clippers can switch everything, and they're not going to have to deal with the consequences as much as some other teams do. Luka is very big on exploiting matchups, but if he is going to try to get the switch and have Montrezl Harrell guarding him, Montrezl Harrell is a pretty good defender on the perimeter for a big man. He's also 6'7", and he's also pretty quick for a big man with some big athleticism. So I think Luka is not going to have that advantage in this series of finding the mismatch, whether that's, posting up someone smaller or taking a big man one-on-one. That's just not going to be there for Luka. So Luka is going to have a tough time, in my opinion, generating points by himself. Now, the key factor for right now for the Mavericks is Kristaps Porzingis, and Kristaps has played pretty well in the bubble so far. However, I don't see him posting up smaller people enough. Kristaps is 7'2", 7'3", whatever it is, and anytime he has a guard on him, he ends up taking the face-up mid-range jumper instead of trying to get right into the paint and shooting right over the guard. And that's where I think Kristaps is not, just that itself is going to ruin the Mavericks' chances in this series, because the Clippers don't have anybody as tall as Kristaps. And I think the Mavericks can really take advantage of that mismatch. But we've seen that Kristaps can't back down smaller people for whatever reason it is. And because of that, I think the Clippers are going to dominate this series. The Mavericks don't really have that many good perimeter defenders. And you got Paul George, Lou Williams, Kawhi Leonard on the perimeter, along with Marcus Morris. I think the Clippers' offense and the Clippers' versatility is going to win them this series pretty easily. And that's just why I have the Clippers moving on in 5 games. I think it's going to be that simple for the Clippers. I know a lot of people are talking about how well Luka and Kristaps are playing, but with all the points I just said, plus the inexperience of this Mavericks team, I really don't see this being a series. So that's Clippers versus Mavericks. Nuggets versus Jazz. So I currently know about Mike Conley. He left the bubble to go be with his wife for the birth of his son. So he is not allowed in the bubble for a while now, or at least 3 days. We know that Mike Conley is going to be missing at least a game, if not more. I actually, before I got that news, I had the Jazz putting up a really serious fight against this Nuggets team. Only reason why I say this is because this Nuggets team struggles with the defensive pick and roll very, very, it's just, when you watch this Nuggets team try to guard the pick and roll, they struggle. And that's because of Jokic is at center, and a lot of teams go after Jokic because he's not that good defensively. Not to mention, they don't really have the best defensive guards on the roster, unless you talk about Torrey Craig and Gary Harris, who are not the point guards. And I thought Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, with the pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, is going to give this Nuggets some serious problems. Now that Mike Conley's out, I think that just puts so much more pressure on Donovan Mitchell to carry the load. And while Donovan Mitchell can do that, I just think now you just lost so much more firepower from the Jazz, and they've already lost Bogdanovich. And because of that, I have the Nuggets now winning this series in 6. I had it initially, before Mike Conley was told to be out, I really was like, this is a coin flip, and I would have said it on here, that I think this is going to go to 7, but it's just going to be a coin flip of whoever makes the last shot in Game 7. So now that, because Mike Conley is going to be missing a game, probably 2, I think the Nuggets are going to get a big advantage because of that. Therefore, I think the Nuggets are going to win in 6. Now, again, the 4-5 matchup in both conferences is really, really intriguing to me. And I am seriously looking forward to both of these matchups. This Rockets-Thunder matchup is full of, players playing against their former teams and stuff like that. Major thing here is this. The Rockets aren't going to have Russell Westbrook for the first 2 games of this series. If it's not the first 2 games, then it's going to be more games. And just because of that, I know that Russell Westbrook is not going to be playing the first 2 games. I think the Thunder win both those games with Westbrook out. Now, if Westbrook comes back in, let's say, Game 3, I still think it's unfortunately too late for the Rockets, and here's the reason why. The Rockets are going to live and die by the 3-ball, right? And in a 7-game series, if you have everyone healthy and like you have your constants, right? So you have James Harden and Russell Westbrook, you're going to get those two guys showing up every single night. The Rockets don't know what's going to happen with the 3-ball every night. Are they going to make enough or are they not going to make enough? And because of that, if you take out one of those guys in Westbrook, let's say James Harden goes off for 50 points, right? That's just 50 points. That means that the rest of that Rockets roster has to make up about 70 points, let's say 60 points, to even have a chance, really, to win that game. If anything, they have to at least make up 50 points, because you have to. If you're the Rockets, you have to get to 100 points. You have to outscore opponents. You're not going to see the Rockets winning games through defense. You have to. They're going to be outscoring the opposing teams. And the Thunder. The thing is with the Thunder is that, one, they can slow down the Rockets' tempo, and without Westbrook there, the Rockets are going to be even slower, and that only hurts the Rockets. The Rockets want as many shots from three-point range as possible in a game, but without Westbrook pushing pace and the Thunder playing much slower, the Rockets are going to have less attempts from three-point range, therefore less possessions, therefore less three-point shots. So, I think the Thunder, with their offensive rebounding being so much better, and them just also being bigger, with Danilo Gallinari just as a constant mismatch for this Rockets team, and it's Chris Paul, who we know is one of the best point guards in the game, and also is the master of the mid-range, which the Rockets do not defend very effectively. I think the Thunder are going to win this series in 6, even if Westbrook comes back in Game 3. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, once Westbrook comes back, it's then you're still depending on that three-point shot. And I think Billy Donovan and Chris Paul are smart enough to think, well, if James Harden goes for 50, Westbrook goes for 30, that's only 80 points. You just have to stop the rest of the team from shooting and making enough threes for them to win the game. So let those two guys go off, and in the case of the first 2 games, let just James Harden go off. Contain the other guys. You're going to win that. You're going to win the game. And that's the reason why I think the Thunder are going to move on. And I'm going to be very, very shocked, though, if the Rockets do win both games without Westbrook, or, you know, at least the first 2 games without Westbrook. But that's a 4-5 matchup. But I am really looking forward to this to see if, 1, if CP3 stays healthy, 2, how good is James Harden going to be in this playoffs, and 3, do the Rockets' small size end up hurting them in the playoffs when the game slows down? So, a very, very good matchup in the first round with the 4-5 teams, and Rockets versus Thunder. Again, I have Thunder winning it in 6 games. So, moving on now to the conference semifinals. I'm going to go through this a little more quickly because I think it's more chalk now at this point. Bucks versus Heat. I know the Heat have had the Bucks number all season, and people have been talking about how well Bam Adebayo guards Giannis, and how the Heat, because they're so good from the three-point range, that they actually have a really good chance of beating the Bucks, because the Bucks give up the three-point shot before they give up give up paint points. I think, though, that it is so much harder to be hitting those three-point shots in the postseason. Because of that, I think the Bucks are going to get a lot more fast break points. I think Mike Budenholzer has officially found the play to beat this Miami Heat defense, which collapses and forms a wall against Giannis. And that's the reason why I think the Bucks are going to be winning this series. I have the Bucks winning against the Heat in the semifinals in 6 games. I think that's pretty simple, though. Just because I just don't think the Heat have enough. Their role players are nice, but they have a lot of rookies that they're going to be depending on. And I don't know if they have enough big men. And, you know, if Bam gets in foul trouble, I think you're kind of screwed if you're the Heat. Celtics versus Raptors. I think this is actually going to go pretty long. I think the Raptors are going to win this in 7. But the reason why I say this is because, again, I've talked about how the Celtics have so many options that they could go to offensively that can create their own shots. And just because of that, I think they're going to actually have some really close games, and that's going to win them some games. Raptors, though, I think the rebounding is going to kill the Celtics, as they play really small, and I think the rebounding is going to win the Raptors this series. but it's going to be close. I have Raptors winning against the Celtics in 7, moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Lakers versus Thunder in the West. Everything that the Thunder do good, I think the Lakers do better. However, again, the Lakers just don't have much perimeter defensive guards. I think the Thunder are going to be getting a couple of games off this Lakers team, but Thunder have even less people to guard Anthony Davis. Therefore, I have the Lakers winning against the Thunder in 6. Nuggets versus Clippers. And I'm going to talk about the inexperience of the Nuggets here. So, I think Jokic and Murray are going to be the ones leading the way for the Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. has played fantastic in the bubble. However, he has not played a postseason game yet. Bol, I don't think he's going to be getting any minutes at all in the postseason. So, even if he does, his inexperience is going to show, especially when the game slows down. Now, Clippers versus Nuggets, the thing that I'm looking at specifically is how good does Jokic do? The main thing with Jokic is that he's good at exploiting matchups, but what makes him so effective is that he can shoot from 3 and he has a pretty good handle. Now, let's say you throw a guy that's, that plays the center position that's going to be guarding him, but he's not very slow, and he is not afraid to come out of the paint. Does that, contain Jokic then? Does Jokic not become as effective? That's what, again, I keep talking about Montrezl Harrell, and I think Montrezl Harrell is going to be so important for the Clippers in the postseason, as he can, even though he's only 6'7", he can stay down in the paint and box out bigger guys, and he can dunk over bigger guys, and post up bigger guys, and defend bigger guys. So, I know Montrezl has not played a game yet, but I see him as he's going to be playing a lot come the playoffs, and I think that's actually going to contain Jokic very well. Then on top of the fact that the Nuggets just have nobody to guard Kawhi Leonard, they don't really have anybody to guard Paul George. I think the Clippers have too many guys that can create their own shot by themselves, while the Nuggets, they rely on Jokic's playmaking to get them shots. I had the Clippers actually winning this pretty convincingly in 5. And a lot of people would be like, what the heck? Are you serious? Like, the Nuggets, they're contenders. It's just, I really question the Nuggets when the game slows down. And they don't have the ability to get those easy shots that they're so used to getting because of Jokic. If Jokic is contained, then the entire Nuggets team is contained. And I think that's what's going to happen against the Clippers. Therefore, I think the Clippers win that series pretty convincingly. Now, to the conference finals, Bucks versus Raptors. It's a rematch of last year's conference finals. I think the main difference here is that the Raptors just don't have Kawhi. And I think what people do not understand is what happened last year. Like, the Raptors were still doing that whole wall idea against Giannis. And, it was really effective, especially the last 4 games of that series. The thing is, though, is the Raptors don't have that main defender right now to guard Giannis. Kawhi can guard Giannis pretty effectively and force him into a direction that he wants, Giannis to go. Pascal Siakam is a pretty good defender, but he's not Kawhi Leonard. And I just don't know how, if Pascal is going to be guarding Giannis, how well is he going to be offensively? Especially when he has to guard Giannis all night. Just because of that, I just think the Raptors lost a humongous piece, and people have talked about, look how good the Raptors are doing, even without Kawhi. This is when Kawhi really counts, and it's in these certain situations. Like, superstars, when they can guard the best player on the opposing team and then still come down on the offensive end and get their points and create their own shots, that's what puts teams from being, fringe contenders to legitimate contenders, and even beating a team that looks to be above them. And I think with this situation, the Raptors are going to sorely miss Kawhi Leonard, and I think the Bucks are going to win this series in 6 games. Raptors have played so well this season. Everyone has stepped up. The thing is that the Bucks also have a pretty good supporting cast and a really good bench as well. So I think this is Giannis' time right now, is to, finally get to the finals. It's going to be this year. Lakers versus Clippers. This is the matchup that we've all been waiting for all season. And I really do think it's actually going to happen. I talked about how, like, there are a lot of teams that are, like, you know, either contenders or fringe contenders. I think the Nuggets and Jazz are legit fringe contenders. Unfortunately, one of those teams get knocked out because they have to knock each other out. Rockets, I think, are also a fringe contender, but they're missing Westbrook. And because they're missing Westbrook, you know, that's going to lose them, I think, the series, so they're gone. Mavericks, I don't think they're actually a contender, unfortunately, just due to their inexperience, as well as Luka is playing and Porzingis is playing. They need more. They just don't have it currently. Now it comes down to the two LA teams who we've known they've been contenders in the West. And this is where I think the depth of the Clippers is going to come back, and it's going to hurt the Lakers severely. If you really think about it, LeBron and AD have to have great games every single game. And I mean every single game. Even in losses, they have to have great games. What's going to be the difference for the Lakers is who's going to be showing up every single night. Now, you know, they have LeBron. LeBron is going to get his role players, the shots that they're looking for, and get those guys in rhythm. But when it comes down to, like, you know, you're in the conference finals, like, this is it. This is your series, and this is the matchup you've been waiting all year for. Who is going to show up? The Clippers, they have by far the best bench in the NBA right now. They have two guys that are in running for Sixth Man of the Year. Not to mention, they've added more. Because of that, I don't see anybody that can really guard Lou Williams on this Lakers team. Montrezl Harrell is going to be a severe nuisance to the Lakers big man, because he can go down and still rebound over Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, etc. And I think he can also contain them very well. He's also going to be able to score on those guys pretty effectively with his athleticism and speed. Clippers then have multiple guys that they can throw at LeBron, which none of the other teams in the NBA really have, except for the Bucks. And the one key factor for the Lakers is Anthony Davis going to be the best player on the floor every single night. If he's not, then it's automatic. There's no way the Lakers are going to win. Anthony Davis has to be the best player for the Lakers to even have a chance. And I mean every single game. I don't see that happening. The Clippers can afford if Paul George has a bad night or Kawhi Leonard has a bad night. And because they have that insurance and they have that bench that's going to be scoring so many points, I see the Clippers winning this series. And I'm going to say in 6 games. I really do think you're going to see that this Clippers team has just more talent. And in my opinion, in a 7-game series of, you know, who is going to be, whoever the players are available for every single game, you're going to see the better team is going to win. And I think the Clippers are going to win this one and show that, you know, while AD and LeBron is probably the best duo in the NBA, they're only 2 people, and 2 people can't, you know, carry a single team to every single win. They have to have the other players step up as well. That's the reason why those role players on championship teams, aka like an Andre Iguodala, is so important. I think Clippers are going to win this one and show that they have so many weapons that can go off for 20 plus every single night, and that's going to win them this series. So, if you remember, if you've ever watched the video, I posted a video right before the beginning of the season saying that I have the Clippers winning the championship versus the Milwaukee Bucks, and I have the Clippers winning it in 6 games. I'm sticking to that. I had the Clippers actually winning the Western Conference. I did not think that they would have to go through so many problems injury-wise. I mean, they've had so many injuries all season. Kawhi Leonard has been on low management, but I kind of figured that was going to happen, and I thought they'd be okay with that, and to be honest, they were fine, because considering how the Raptors did when Leonard was on load management, I thought the Clippers would be just the same, and they were about the same. I did not expect Paul George to be out for so many games, and that really killed the Clippers in my opinion, which that's the reason why I think they missed out on being the 1 seed. They were only 3 games behind the Lakers, all things considered. But I do think Clippers are going to be hopefully 100% healthy throughout the entire postseason. And I do think they're going to beat the Bucks. The reason why is Kawhi Leonard is going to be on Giannis or, on Chris Middleton. They also have Paul George who could guard Giannis or Middleton. Marcus Morris can guard Giannis or Middleton. Patrick Beverley is going to be able to guard Bledsoe or Middleton. They have all these guys on the roster that can guard the star players on the Bucks. And I just don't think that you're going to see Brook Lopez, Wesley Matthews, and the other role players for the Bucks stepping up enough to make up for what Giannis and Middleton would usually do. Because I really think that the Clippers are going to be able to contain the stars of the Bucks. I am not going to be questioning Kawhi Leonard's ability in the playoffs. We saw it last year. Do not question that man. He's going to show up. He's going to guard the best player every single night, especially during crunch time. And he is going to be going on full-out ISO against the best player on offense and still hitting those shots in crunch time. Bucks have shown this year that they have had problems when it comes to crunch time and scoring at points. A lot of their wins come off of blowouts. And I think the Bucks are going to get a good amount of their wins in the playoffs off of some, pretty big leads, because they just have so many people that other teams just don't have, that they can continue their momentum throughout a game. Well, when, the opposing team goes to the bench players can't keep up what the stars would do. Milwaukee has that luxury. But Clippers also have that luxury, and I think the Clippers' ability to create shots, that they have so many more people that can create their own shots, is going to help them again in this series. And I have the Clippers winning it in 6, like I said before the season started. So this is my playoff bracket right before the playoffs actually start. I expect probably a lot more close games. One, because there's really no home court advantage in these playoffs. Again, it's no fans. You're going to see fans all around the arena virtually. You're going to hear the fans, that they have the sound system going, but players know that fans aren't really there, and there's really no home court advantage in these games. Other thing is that I just think that this year is just so much different from the last 4 years. If you really think about the last 4 years, it was like Warriors are going to defeat this team, Warriors are going to defeat this team, etc. Last year with the Eastern Conference, it was actually really, really interesting because you had the Bucks and the Raptors really going at it, and it was close. Celtics were kind of, they were just kind of getting there as well. Against Philly also, but it was kind of, all over the place for the Eastern Conference. And that's good. You want to see that, because you don't want to come into the playoffs thinking, oh, this team's going to 100% win it, no doubt about it. I have the Clippers winning it, but I would not be shocked if the Denver Nuggets won the playoffs, won the championship this year. I will not be shocked if the Rockets won the championship this year. I will not be shocked if the Boston Celtics win the championship this year. And that's what I want, and I think that, especially in the West this year, even in the first round, you're going to see a lot of really close games. It may not be a close series, but the games are going to be so much closer than we've ever seen before. I think it was like either 2013 or 2014 playoffs where there were so many first round matchups that went to 7 games, and this is when the Warriors were not good, as good yet. They were hovering around the 6th seed a lot, and I just remember that the Clippers and the Warriors, I think it was, they went to 7 games. That's what I want to see. And it's not necessarily I want to see a full-out series, even though that would be great as well. I just want to see the games really, really, really close. I want to see a lot of game winners. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in these playoffs. And I really hope that you guys are just as hyped as I am for these playoffs, because I think it's going to be awesome to see these really, really close games and see who's going to be the people that come up clutch in crunch time. It's going to really show who are the best players in the NBA right now. We don't really have that many young teams. They're up and coming, except maybe you can count the Celtics, but they have Kemba. the Magic and the Nets, like, they're kind of like in between. Like, the Nets are pretty young as well, but like they're not as young as how like when the Bucks, you know, made the 8th seed a couple of years ago. So there's not really that in this situation. Like, you know, if the Grizzlies made the playoffs, that would be the young team, but we just don't have that this year. And because of that, the first round is going to be more intriguing than from previous years. So I hope you guys are looking forward to the playoffs, because I am really looking forward to the playoffs happening. Obviously, these my bracket is not, you know, going to happen. I'm not going to get 100% correct on this. But go ahead in the comment section down below. Agree with whatever, disagree with whatever. Like the video, don't like the video. I'm going to pull Michael Reeves on that one. I hope to be recording more things from here on out. I apologize for not recording things, but for those of you that are still watching my videos, I realized that I have like around like 150 views in the past 28 days somehow, and I haven't posted in 2 months, but I appreciate you for all those that are watching my videos, and I hope to be making more videos like this in the near future. But make sure you guys watch the playoffs happen, which start when this video comes out today, because it's going to be a fun one. I'm expecting games to be like March Madness, and I hope you guys expect that too, because it's going to be a really fun experience. But thank you guys for watching the video. Subscribe, don't subscribe, like, don't like. I'll see you guys in the next video, which is probably going to be a Jim Boylan video. Peace.